Good afternoon, teachers and educationists. A warm welcome to you all. I am Priyanka Mukherjee from Cambridge, and without a doubt, the mission statement of Cambridge has been the pursuit of excellence in education, in research, the whole idea of creating a conversation between learners and teachers, engaging them, making learning an immersive experience. This has been the guiding light of Cambridge. And with a presence in 170 plus countries and a legacy of hundreds of years, it has been our constant endeavor to let excellence be our North Star. I hope that the teachers who have joined here and who are joining here today, they have had the chance to go through the Teachers of Tomorrow platform, which is a collaborative platform where teachers can learn from each other, they can share their expertise, they can share their thoughts, and also augment their learning curve, because all these webinars will also be available on the Teachers of Tomorrow website. And webinars like these provide us that opportunity to learn, to engage, and most importantly, as you will see in today's topic also, it focuses on the practical application of that knowledge in a classroom scenario. We're extremely elated to have with us an education industry veteran, Mr. Carol Joseph. He has held the mantle of transformation across reputed institutions like St. Paul's Darjeeling, Weinberg Allen School, Mussoorie, and Indus International School, to name just a few. He is the foundation principal of the Gera School in Goa. Today's topic on strategies of learning has a deep impact and resonance on how we perceive of learning as a process and how we can make it more impactful and transformative. So without further ado, sir, welcome to today's webinar, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Ms. Priyanka. Good evening, everybody. This was a workshop I'd done for my teachers in the school, and this presentation will be given to Ms. Priyanka. Anyone who would like to have it is most welcome to. I don't claim any copyright over whatever I show you. The only claim I make is of labor, and I will give you the resource from which I have taken all of this, right? So what does this webinar aim to do or to show to you, right? The first one is introduce strategies that help students in thinking better. The second one is the importance of strong foundational knowledge. And the third will be help a learner remember what has been taught. Okay. Now, we like to imagine ourselves as thinking creatures. After all, we are the highest order in evolution. But what if I shared with you that we don't otherwise like to think? That's not the first. It's not our first resort. Okay. The mind is not designed for thinking. We are curious, but we are not naturally good thinkers. More of our energy goes in mental energy will go in seeing and moving rather than in thinking. And it says, unless the cognitive conditions are right, we will avoid thinking. What is the implication? The teachers should consider how they encourage their students to think and make it enjoyable to do so. We work using memory. We can't always think out of the box. Now, let me explain this. Suppose you buy groceries in the first week of the month, right? Some of us may go on the first of the month, some may go on the fourth Saturday of the month. Let's say we walk into a grocery store with our shopping list. Now, that's a shelf from one of your supermarkets or department stores that you go there. And if you had to think out of the box for the rice, the cereal, the lentils, the soap, the shampoo, and the spices, you'd be exhausted by the end of it. most times we will just take the cart and say, okay, 2 packets of sugar and 2 packets of Amul milk and 1 packet of Amul butter and this rice and this dal and this chili powder and whatever, right? And we work from memory. Even when we think, we will use memory, right? So think of the time when you first learned how to ride a two-wheeler or when you learned to drive a car. You had to think about, okay, first I put in the key, then I press the clutch, then I press the clutch, then I turn the key and start the car. Then I've got to move into first gear, then I move into second gear. And the person who's coaching you during your lessons has to constantly remind you, release clutch, press brake, or go slow, move into a higher gear, move into a lower gear, and so on. After some time, as we begin to get the hang of it and we remember, then it becomes automatic for us, right? We just get into the car, we in fact have a conversation. We can listen to music also at the same time. I don't have to focus so much. Notice someone who's not confident driving also, we like this, right? And looking straight ahead at the road. But once you're calmer, you're able to do, I don't say that you should look at your mobile while driving, but you're able to do other things like sing a song, right? Or be able to take in cues from the side, from your peripheral vision, even while driving a car. So while I say we are not naturally thinking creatures, we don't do it almost automatically. We are curious and we enjoy mental activities. Now, curiosity should not be tested too much. We, as it says here, we are curious when we think we will learn a lot. Now think about your students. Look at the next slide. I say curiosity is fragile. Why? Think about people who know Sudoku or people who know Wordle. And take this one. Most times people will take the one on the left and not the one on the right. And I've given you the one on the right is not too difficult. I could show you even more difficult ones. And there's a time when we will say, no, I will do, most times people will say, I'll do Sudoku. If they don't know Sudoku, they'll do, if they're learners, they will do Sudoku easy. As they learn it, they will go do Sudoku hard. But maybe they won't do Sudoku diabolical, right? Or fiendish. Why? Because we like to learn, but if we are being tested too much, then the curiosity goes. We like a challenge, but we don't being challenged too much. If it's going to be too much of an effort, then we give up right at the start. And that's a good implication for our classroom teaching. We must plan challenges, but we must make it interesting and not too difficult for the kids. Not too easy and not too difficult. How do you find that golden mean? Well, I suppose with experience, you'll get it. Now, let's go into the environment. How do we think? You have the environment, and I don't mean just the nature around us, but any external stimuli, right? So it might be a classroom, it might be sitting under a tree, it might be in the laboratory, it might be in the library. Whatever is the external environment, all the external stimuli, it could be even an online classroom, and it contributes to the environment. Now, we take in information from the environment, we take in all the stimuli, and that goes into first working memory, right? And what is our working memory? The site of awareness and thinking. So, for example, if you're an English teacher, you're saying, okay, I'm going to teach, you're talking about adjectives and describing words, and that's all working memory. But if someone says, okay, it describes a noun, then, oh, someone says, yeah, I remember a noun, noun is a naming word, right? So now that is from long-term memory. Okay, so long-term memory is factual knowledge that we have learned well, or it's procedural knowledge. I'll give you an example. Okay, but just remember this, working memory and long-term memory. We're going to use these terms quite a few times during this. 18 into 7, right? Now, most times if I give you 18 into 7, the child or you will say, okay, 7 8s are 56, 6 carry 5, 7 1s are 7 and 5, 12, 1, 2, 6 is the answer, right? Whether you do it in a straight line or you do it writing 7 underneath 18. Now you take this one. Rohan has 5 lollipops. Jack has got twice that number and Tara has 1 more than what Jack has. How many lollipops do Jack and Tara each have? Now, in the first one, you use long-term memory. In the second one, you're using working memory as well as long-term memory. Why long-term memory? Because in the first one, 7 8s are 56, you just knew it. When you first started of tables, then it was working memory. As you learned the tables, it went into long-term memory. Now in this one, you've got long-term memory, but you say Jack has got twice that number. Okay, 2 5s are 10. And Tara has 1 more, so 10 plus 1, 11. Okay, so 10 for Jack, Tara for, so you're using working memory because you're figuring it out. There's the site of awareness, right? The site of thinking. And how many lollipops? So you figure that out, but you have also used working memory and you have used long-term memory. Okay. Remember, I must try and get more things into long-term memory so that the working memory is freed up. Okay. I've shown you what I was telling you about. What is working memory? What is long-term memory? The addition and the multiplication. If one more than what Jack has, 10 plus 1, 11, right? You just knew it. You knew how to add it. Now, what are the implications for teaching? Children like challenges, like I said before. So ensure that there's a problem. And what is a problem? It's cognitive work that poses moderate challenge. Notice I said moderate challenge. Don't make it too easy. Because one, it won't be interesting. Or when children are used to very easy problems, the moment they get a slightly difficult one, they give up. They don't know how to handle it. A problem is not memory retrieval. Okay, so what does this mean? Rote memory, if you only are relying on rote memory, not good. If you only ask him to recall something, the lowest order of Bloom's taxonomy, that's not a problem. A problem has to be something challenging, where he has to apply knowledge or we has to imagine something. Okay. Remember that students have cognitive limits. Save problems for another time if the background knowledge is not there. Another thing that I will keep talking of is background knowledge. Teach basic concepts before puzzling. That means giving them a puzzle. So you want a problem, but remember that you need to have background knowledge before you want to teach them something, because children, when they are absorbing information, they will always relate it to something that they learned before, right? Make sure you do not overload working memory. That's why I said more things must go into long-term memory. If a child hasn't learned his tables and he says 5 marbles, he has twice as many. 5 1s are 5, 5 2s are 10. Now, if I had said 4 times as many, 5 1s are 5, 5 2s are 10, 5 3s are 15, and 5 4s are, he's trying to remember 20. It's overloading working memory. So you try and make sure that the child gets tables in long-term memory so it comes fast. Now, I also said, another way to not overload working memory is have notes and images on the board. I observe classes. I've always observed classes of my teachers, and I'll find that sometimes teachers get so busy talking that they don't write important terms on the board or a new word on the board or vocabulary that they're using, or that they don't write down the main points. They're writing, for example, causes of the mutiny of 1857 or the functions of the lungs or the heart, and they don't go writing all those main points on the board. So a child who's tuned off temporarily, maybe he's not feeling well, he's gone and sharpened his pencil, gone and opened his water bottle, or gone to fill water or something like that, or he's pulling out a book from a bag, suddenly has lost the train of thought. If there are no notes or images on the board or calculations on the board, now he can't figure out, how did you get that? What are you talking about? He's lost it, and you are not going to repeat it, right? But if you write it on the board, if he's tuning in again, he immediately can relate what you are saying to what's given on the board. So now, if you make them, if it's all coming to him and nothing written on the board, blank blackboard, he's got to keep all of it in working memory, right? He's trying to fit in everything that you're saying in working memory. But if you have the images on the board, he can now concentrate on what you are saying, and his working memory is only taking in what you are saying that time, but he's got the board there to refer to whenever he needs to. So he doesn't need to remember all the things that you are saying. For example, you used a new word like baffled. You write baffled meaning and you write the meaning down, right? Puzzled. So he doesn't need to remember it. He concentrates on the next thing that you are saying. His working memory does not have to figure out all the new words that you're using. Plan shifts in lessons to regain attention. Every now and then do group work, do an energizer, make them get up, as we do this, especially with lower kids, younger kids, get up, do some breathing, do some activity, make them move around, or just change the lesson, have a game, something like that. Those energizers, or the shift, when I mean a shift in the lesson, because you make them do a different activity, you give them a puzzle, you make them watch a video, something like that. It's not a non-stop barrage of information. It helps to leave in the lesson and keep them fresh throughout those 40 minutes or 1 hour, as long as the period is. I'm already 13 minutes. Now, I told you once in a previous slide that teach them conceptual knowledge, foundational knowledge before teaching them new information. Now, we live in an age where people sometimes say, oh, thinking skills, critical thinking skills, analytical skills, right? That seems to be the new vogue words, and the new mantra is teach children how to think. Oh, rote memory has got a bad name. But thinking skills depend on factual knowledge. I told you, whenever we teach something new, children first need to, if you say adjective is a describing word, it describes nouns, they already know what nouns are, right? And from there, then they go on to a word that describes a noun, like describe my mama. You know, she's tall, she's medium height, pretty, that, but they know now what naming words are. Then they go into describing words, right? And from describing words, then you go into an adjective, an adverb that describes an adverb or an adjective. And so that you keep depending on it. But you need the factual knowledge. So don't diminish the value and the importance of knowledge. Give them knowledge, because then only can they think. Please remember this line. The more knowledge you give them, the more they can think. So you can't do one and not the other. Both are important. One is not at the cost of the other. They need to go hand in hand. The more knowledge they have, the better they think. Now one way how to make them think. Look at this. If I asked you to remember XCN, NPH, DIC, TGM, TFA, QX, very difficult to remember XCN, NPH, DIC, TGM. But what if I just did this? Same letters, right? X, CNN, PhD, ICT, GMT, FAQ, X. Now suddenly it makes sense to you, right? When you see CNN, you immediately connect with something else. When you see PhD, you know what it means, right? GMT, FAQ. FAQ reminds you of something else. So this is called chunking, right? And chunking is what we do when we club information in groups. So, for example, you can use it through mnemonics. Let's take Bloom's taxonomy, right? Remember, umbrellas almost always have exciting colors, right? So recall, there's 6, right? Recall, understanding, umbrellas, almost always, applying, analyze, have exciting colors, evaluating, and creating. In the Treaty of Versailles, why did Germany not like, or why did Germany not like the terms of the Treaty of Versailles? And you say brat, blame, reparations, armament, and territory. So now I do chunking. You can also do chunking by teaching groups of related information together. Have a mind map, right? And when they look at that mind map, they remember all of it together, right? So factual knowledge and long-term memory allows chunking, and this increases space in working memory. I'm going to keep repeating myself ad nauseum about these things. Get more information into long-term memory. Work on it. Factual knowledge is important. Background knowledge is a space in working memory. And like I said, mnemonics, forming acronyms or acrostics or the method of loci. Google method of loci. I won't have time to tell you about the method of loci, but it's an interesting one. And you'll get this PPT if you'd like to have it. Please take screenshots if you'd like. Now, benefits of background knowledge. It provides vocabulary. It allows you, like I told you, I'm just going to use the same one, say adjectives, right? Nouns, right? It allows you to, and from adjective, there we build. It allows you to bridge logical gaps that writers leave. It allows chunk, which increases rooms in working memory. What's the implication for children from privileged and unprivileged homes? Now, privileged children from privileged homes, and we are all from privileged homes, I would imagine, because we've had a full education, we've got an education, we've done higher education, we've done a professional qualification, right? Even if we had it tough, but now we have it. And now we have access to libraries in our schools and so on. But what about those who are coming from less privileged backgrounds? They don't have background information. They don't have that much factual knowledge. So the ones who, when you're talking about something, you're talking about dinosaurs, you're talking about black holes, you're talking about space, you're talking about something, someone says, yeah, I got it. I remember this. And they can talk to you about dinosaurs, right? And about the Big Bang Theory and, sorry, I mean, the theory of a crash or sudden change in temperature, meteor crash or something like that. But the one who's coming from a non-privileged background, he doesn't have this. He doesn't have access to YouTube. He doesn't have access to library books. He doesn't have access to, he doesn't have an iPad where he can constantly scour the internet for additional information. So be mindful of this when you're dealing with children. Some of them will will be ahead, and you'll be catering to that group and not the other group. Whereas they can do, and they would be able to do as well as the ones who are from privileged homes, but they need your help so that they can come up to par with the others. Now, not only does background knowledge make you a better reader, it is also necessary to be a good thinker. Let's say I talked to you about, I was talking about the Treaty of Versailles, right? In order to be able to, now you have this question that I was reading in the book that I'm on, the Treaty of Versailles. Does everything have to have a cause? Can there be no event which does not have a cause? Think about it. I'll ask you another question. If I ask you about your view, can you always be objective, or do you have some bias? Can anyone say I'm not biased? Because the way we were brought up, whether we brought up very strictly, I mean, in the way we think, does that not indicate bias? You're brought up by a very liberal upbringing. Someone was brought up very firmly. Someone brought up with not to question knowledge. So you grew up like that. Someone's brought up lovingly. Someone's brought up different ways, right? So in order to be able to now make you think, I need to have all this knowledge. Only then would I be able to get better at my own thinking. If I talk to you about, so if I'm talking to you about, say, why do people fight? Why do people have quarrels? Then you say, hey, look at Helen of Troy, right? The Trojan War. Look at the Ramayana. So we sometimes have that people fight over people. Then you think of resources. Oh, Germany invaded because of this reason, they wanted resources. Japan invaded China, Manchuria for this reason, so they want resources, right? But you can only do that when you have more knowledge, because then you can relate information and form a pattern and a picture in your head. When people do logical thinking, he or she is engaged in memory retrieval. Memory is the cognitive process of first resort. Whenever you think, remember this, whenever you think about something, you're always trying to relate it to something that you've heard before. You go to a doctor and say, doctor, he says, what's the problem? And then you tell him, doctor, I have this and I have a rash and I've got burning and I've got this. You know what the doctor's first doing? Where have I seen this before? Where did I see such a case before? Where did I read about it? Right? He is going into memory first. Then he's saying, but this does not fit in with what I read. Okay, where else did I read the similar symptoms? That's why government doctors in a medical college, right? They're the best doctors because they've seen the most patients. As I read in the book, as I read in the book, the best geologist is the one who has seen the most rocks, right? Imagine how many cases they have in their memory from which to draw on. Now, look at Vishwanathan Anand. Do you know that a chess player, a good chess player, the Kasparovs and Karpovs and Anands, they have up to 50,000 moves in their brain. So when this opponent of his makes one move, immediately he's saying, oh, he's moved the pawn, right? He's moved this rook, he's moved this bishop. Now, what are the various moves? Maybe he'll do this next time, and then he'll do this, will be the third move, and the fourth move, and the fifth move, and the sixth move. Then he says, no, he doesn't move the knight, he moves the bishop. Oh, so now he's thinking of the next 1,000 moves or possibilities that he'll remember this match. Karpov or Bobby Fischer played that match. In that match, he had done the same move. Is he trying that same? So even grade 10, like I told you about a doctor, but someone like a good 10 chess player will have 50,000 chess moves playing in his head, right? So remember that line. Memory is the cognitive process of first resort. The more background knowledge you have, the more things in your long-term memory, the better you're able to think, right? Our brains are not like this, right? But I'm already 23 minutes, and Ms. Priyanka told me I've only got 25 minutes actually. She said, maximum you'll get 5 more minutes. So I'm going to raise. When it comes to knowledge, those who have more gain more. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. If we don't look after those ones from less privileged backgrounds or the ones who are struggling, they get poorer because we keep pace with the ones who are doing well. Now, let's say you know how to make let me take a dish. I'm assuming that you won't be put off by say the talk of meat, right? So let's say you make one kind of biryani, right? Then I say a mutton biryani, you make a mutton biryani, and then I teach you how to do someone teach you how to do prawn. Then you say, oh, yeah, I know how to do this. Oh, but in this one, we don't do this, right? Okay, so that's the difference. But because you already know how one biryani is made, you can now tweak it to make other kinds of biryani. Whenever we read new information, we are constantly relating it, and then we remember more. Because it's easier to remember when I have all that information. If you're learning biryani for the first time, very difficult. You're going, okay, now I'll do this. Then, okay, I'll do this now. Then you're looking again at the recipe book, and then you'll do it again, right? The more factual knowledge, the better you become at memorizing it. Anyone who cooks will tell you that. What's the implication? When you have more, you retain more. When you retain more, you learn more next time, the rich get richer. So what do you do? You expose children to vocabulary and new ideas. Go to books, magazines, newspapers, videos. Gaming and social media offer much less. Now remember, you can be a science teacher, but doesn't mean that you can't speak good English. You can't improve vocabulary. Like, for example, I say a gnarled stem. Or I can't say coarse. I can use smooth and rough, but I can also use better vocabulary, right? Just like we say, don't say food pipe, say esophagus. Don't say windpipe, say trachea. But just not subject specific. You can even use words, whether I'm doing history, ruthless, magnanimous, benevolent. I can use words there as well, right? It's not only the English teacher's job to teach a language. So expose them to vocabulary, expose them to new ideas. We were doing a history lesson in GP, and we were doing slave trade. We said, okay, let's learn where's the Atlantic, where's the Pacific, where's this, where's that, where the Americas, where's the West Indies. Then we went into the slave trade. Then we said, okay, is it wrong to own a person? Is it wrong to own a person? Why can't I buy a person just as I buy somebody? I buy services, I buy goods. Why can't I buy a person? So now I can take an idea and I can, like I said, I can use any lesson to expose them to vocabulary as well as new ideas. In the old days, the Egyptians would bury say a warrior would be buried with his weapons. Homemaker may have been buried with the cooking implements. Today, how do we prepare for the next life? right? Why? What's different? So again, new ideas. I'm teaching history, but I can always make them think. I'm going to raise a bit, don't mind. Some shallow knowledge is better than no knowledge. Start with simple. They'll read comics. Okay, they don't need to read Sidney Sheldon, right? But get them to read something. Start off with small books. Start off with Chanda Mama and Champak. And after that, get them into, slowly encourage them to read fiction as well as non-fiction. They cannot build factual knowledge without reading, which means, of course, sirs and ma'ams, you need to read. Okay? Everything cannot be taught in class. They have to become self-directed learners, and therefore they have to learn at read from. The school librarian is an important resource person. She's not he or she is not an issuer of books, is a teacher librarian. A school librarian opens them to the world. Start early. They might be in nursery and KG, but you can still make them think. You can be talking of respiratory systems, circulatory systems, and still make them think. You can talk. Then they never. You can never say they're too young. To make them think, you can always start early. Should I have done this? Should she have spoken like this? If I go underwater, why can't I breathe for long? What is it that a frog can do that I can't do, and why? Things like that. Knowledge must be meaningful and relevant. Ensure that facts related to one another are not random. Because when you see patterns, then you learn better. If I gave you different words, baffling, hilarious, minute, you won't be able to do. But if I take words of one recipe and then teach you, then it makes sense. So supposing I say dice, chop, saute, you get it all. It's easy to learn, right? So try and integrate learning. It becomes easier to remember. The last part, memory. Now, look at this note. We've all looked at this note, right? How many of us will remember, I showed you, sorry. How many of us remember that, okay, one side is Mahatma Gandhi, right? But which part of Mahatma Gandhi is on the other side? And what's written on that object, right? So we say, okay, Swachh Bharat. I didn't know, right? And what's written under that, Ek Kadam Swachhata Ki Aur? When I was asked, I didn't know. Because we don't think about it. We only think about the purchasing power of this, right? And that's the point that the author makes, is that students remember what they think about. Memory is the residue of thought. Lovely line. Memory is the residue of thought. The more we think about something, the longer we will remember. Okay. Right now, if you're not paying attention because your little son or daughter is troubling you there, is doing something that she shouldn't be doing, then, well, you're thinking about that. When you walk into a restaurant, if you won't pay attention to the furniture and the color of the tablecloth. If I just ask you what is the color of the walls, you won't remember, right? Unless you said, what a lovely color that is. Oh, what color is that, waiter? What is that color? What paints have you used? Now you will remember because you paid attention to it, right? So when we have the environment, we have working memory, the site of awareness and thinking. We go into, when we learn it, it goes into long-term memory. And from long-term memory, it goes back into working memory when we want to recall something. But everything that goes into long-term memory can also be forgotten. Like, for example, you may remember a phone number, but after 2 years, when we don't no longer use that phone number, you'll forget the phone number, right? But even in working memory, if it doesn't go into long-term memory, even there we can forget. I can tell you something today and you can forget it tomorrow. So how do we make children remember? For something to stay for a while in working memory, a student must pay attention to it. So that, therefore, you use things that engage them, right? You make the experience memorable. You make the student's experience enjoyable by activities, by fun activities, maybe a group work or an experiment or a nice video which holds their attention, then they'll remember it. A project, a visit to a field trip. The emotional bond with the teacher is so important as well. So they remember, if they don't like the messenger, they will never learn the message. Your connection with them is vital. Otherwise, they will not learn. They may learn only for that exam, then forget everything. But if they like you, if you form a good rapport with them, they will always remember what you have taught them. use tools such as mnemonics. How do you remember? One way is drill work, right? 32 minutes, wow. One way is to do drill work. So drill work is important, whether it's tables, whether it's vocabulary, give me 5 words for angry, right? Then keep whatever vocabulary you teach them, you do it. Functions of the circulatory system. What are the different organs of the circulatory system? Keep at it. What happens when you have practiced enough? You go to the next level within that. For example, I say, give me an example with a proper noun. Now give me a noun with an adjective. Now give me a noun, verb, and adjective in the same sentence. Give me a noun, adjective, and adverb along with a prefix un or a suffix in that sentence. And so you keep raising the level. Lots of practice pair up. I'm going to show you something. This is the last slide. Can you see 4th, 5th, 6th, all study written in small letters? And on the 7th. And on the 7th, you've got study, all written in capital letters, right? Basically, when a study was done on students, they found that the one and notice the 8th has a test and the 15th also has a test, right? So they found that students who studied one day before, which is given in the study in capital letters, they did maybe as well or little better than the ones who had been studying 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th, right? It was very fresh. But on the 15th, the ones who had done at regular intervals, they did better. Now that's what you want, right? You don't want kids studying one day before the exam. You want them to remember whatever you have taught in the next class also, right? You taught them fractions now they learn addition, subtraction. The next class, they learn multiplication, division. From there, they go on to decimal fractions. From there, they go on to higher, bigger stuff, right? So you always want them to remember. So whatever you do, space it out. Like you're doing, say, adjectives and adverbs, or you're doing letter writing. Don't do letter writing only in the first term and then forget about it for the rest of the term. Every now and then, keep revising whatever you have taught. You've done circulatory, respiratory, and you're going to excretory and digestive, and then you'll go on to mammals and amphibians. But every now and then, return to what you have done and revise it. Your children will remember for a longer period. Space out your revision tests. Okay. Normally, we do one and then forget all about it. I'm going to end right here. That's finito. You have this test, but I'll give you the name of the book. That's the name of the book. Right? Read the book, because I've had to race through it. I've tried to take out a few things from there, but read the book and then you will, it says it's written by a cognitive scientist, and I found it very interesting. And when I did the workshop for my staff, they found it interesting too. Right? So yeah. Sorry, I took long.
So I'm glad that you took long, because as I can see, the participants have been so hooked on that the numbers have kept increasing irrespective of the session extending a bit. And the appreciation has been overflowing, and the questions as well. So without further ado, sir, I will just take up some of the questions in the interest of time. How does background knowledge make you a better reader?
So when we first start reading, we first learn words and words, right? But I had a student who learned A to W, but his teacher had A to U. But that student did not read W, X, Y, Z. Right? Now, when it came to yellow, water, why, when, he didn't know. He couldn't read. So a simple thing like that, the basics of reading, he didn't have the background knowledge. Now, once you have the and it and words, then you're able to read. Now, once you're able to read, then you go into, like, for example, even the silent letters and all. So the more you read, I cannot do complex reading if I haven't done simple reading. I can't teach you about, say, a recipe that requires lots of hard work or lots of levels, like, say, in some case, cakes in baking, there are very levels. You're making a sponge cake, it might be different, right? Or you're making cakes, biscuit cake, it's simple to make, right? But anything that I need, if I don't have background knowledge, I can't build new learning, because new learning always takes into account previous knowledge, right? So even if I'm saying like I'd use the recipe of biryani, I first know, okay, saute onions. I know what it means to saute onions, right? I know what it means to handle the meat, right? I know what it means, how much ginger garlic to use. What does, if I put more ginger, if I put more garlic, what does it do? I know that some meats require less ginger, more garlic, and some require equal amounts of ginger garlic. It's like that, right? So, next, ma'am.
So thank you. Again, I'm joining two questions because questions are pouring in. So the question is around learners who are improving learners. We avoid using the word slow learners, but we use the word improving learners instead. How can we do justice to improving learners or learners with various neurodiverse learners without special educators' support? And how do we improve their memory? This is a question that has come from two teachers. How do we address the issue of neurodiverse learners in a classroom and do justice to them?
Well, it's I honestly, you can't do everything yourself. I'm sorry. If you've got a class of 50 kids, in some schools they only have 20 kids in a class and 25 kids in a class. In some schools there are 50 kids in a class, and you're the only teacher. Some schools have two teachers, right? Now, if you're doing 50 teachers, it becomes very difficult. Also, so you can help. You can try and find out. You can try and find out, and you can Google yourself and find out. Okay, for example, what techniques. So if a child has ADHD, like you'll say, okay, what can I do? I give him small tasks to do. I write it down in simple terms. I make him go for a walk every now. I'll tell him, okay, go drink water and come back. I'll keep breaking it up. I won't engage him for a long period of time. So you could do like that. You could self-learn, but it becomes very difficult. After some time, you need a specialist. So if you've got a child with mild autism, you do need other people. It becomes very difficult to handle one. You've got one child with mild autism and 49 other kids, right? So I would then say, look, go after your management and say, if you really want me to help kids, you've taken in the school, right? You've taken the child into school. So yes, you want to be an inclusive school. Then you've got to provide him the resources. It's not fair to a child that you take a child in, but then don't want to help the child by giving him what he or she needs. So
Thank you, sir.
you can only help partly.
Sure. Sir, the question that keeps coming up is the question of retention. How do we increase the level of retention in different subjects? How do we
First of all,
ensure that?
so first you make knowledge applicable. Like, so when children see the application of knowledge, right? Now I don't have I like if you can do like supposing in science experiments, right? Supposing you're doing a science experiment, I'm tempted to do this, right? This is like this. Imagine I've got two things here. I've got this here, right? If I do like this, it go like this. I'm just putting a pen, right? Now, and I know people who've seen this, they never ever forget it. But so I've taken the same sheet of paper, right? And I folded it like this, right? Now see, it's between I don't have, yeah. Now I can put a pen. Oops, I can put a pen and it will not collapse, right? And I can put more things, unfortunately, and I've even done this with mobile phones. And basically what you tell children is that in architecture, the same paper, right? When I was doing like this, it wouldn't hold. But when I did like this, it was able to hold, because in architecture, triangles and arches are the two strongest forms, right? Load gets like this and then like this is distributed. Now, when they see a bridge, they'll always remember, oh, triangles. Oh, I see arches in a big, like these mosques or churches, right? They see a big dome, right? They go to historical monuments. They see halls with big arches and they say, I remembered. Cornerstone, keystone, key most important things of the art. You tell them about, let's say, light and sound, right? We know that light travels faster than sound. That's why I see lightning, then I hear thunder. But what happens when the distance between lightning and thunder increases? Then I say, oh, that means the storm is going away. right? I try and find out purpose of knowledge. That's one thing. The other thing is, like I said, the rapport. If you make children, if you feel that in helping them, I help myself, I learn, I am passionate about your subject, they will remember also. Also, I must be kind to students. I know children can be very difficult, right? They're very demanding, they're very exacting. But if I can build a good rapport, my children will learn whatever I teach them. Yeah.
So, can we improve background knowledge through rote learning?
No. If you only wrote learning, if you only do rote learning, then you cannot apply in different contexts. I am sure you've seen after an exam, when we were growing up, but ma'am never taught us that way. Sir never taught us that way. But when you, okay, Miss Priyanka, I asked this one kid, give me a 3-digit number or 4-digit number, each separate. Can you give me?
9781.
9781, right? So I told someone, let's do 9781, right? How many hundreds? So that's seven, 9781, right? So I said, how many hundreds? 7. How many thousands? 9, right? So I said, hello. I asked them, I said, a concept. I'm giving you 9,781 rupees. And if I give it to you all in 100 rupee notes, you only have 700 rupee notes. I said, you're telling me place value. I asked you how many hundreds are there in 9,781? Then you have to tell me 97, right? Then I said, how many? And when I asked them, how many 9781, how many tens are there in 9781? They said 8 tens. I said, hold on. I said, if I gave you 9,781 in 10 rupee notes, how many notes would you have? Only 8? No. So when I understand a concept, then I'm able to apply in different contexts. Then I understand it well. So memory is the residue of thought. It must first have meaning to me. Yeah, sometimes we just like something, or a tune just sticks in our head, right? But most often the things that we can understand, that we can think about, that we can reason out, that stays with us longer. Rote memory learns only for a short while.
We have to take one last question, and then, sir, we have to call it a day.
I'm sorry,
There's a recurrent
question. Right? I've just raced through it. I've given you a 7-course meal, or I just packed all into it in one, but I'm sorry. I just wanted you to have that 7-course meal. Yes, ma'am, you're saying one more question.
Yeah, just we'll take one last question, sir. How do we, I'm just summarizing it, how do we improve reading skills in a practical way among students?
So a mother crab was talking to a baby crab, right? And she said, my son, why are you walking sideways? Now, we know that crabs walk sideways, right? Why are you walking sideways? Why can't you walk straight? So baby crab said to the mother crab, Mama, you first show me, no? So if we want our kids to read, first we read with them. It starts with children sitting down and mama or grandpa or father or somebody telling stories to them. And they can only, because before we speak before we read, and we read before we write. Okay. When we were learning a language, first we spoke. We first spoke mama, dada, do, whatever, right? Before we could read it. Then we read it before we could write it on our own. Now, first we read. Then we tell stories to the children. We interest them. Then we read with them, so they follow with us. We have reading sessions in class. You either can do group reading, or you have it up on the projector, or in twos, and they read. And tell them, read, what do you like? When I take children when I teach English, I say, what do you like to read? You want to read science fiction? Okay, try the Asimov. You like murder mystery? Okay, try Conan Doyle. Or you try history. Tell me what you want to read. You want dinosaurs? Read an encyclopedia about dinosaurs. Read non-fiction, read fiction, but read something. Because reading is important. If you don't read, you can't be a learner all your life. You will always be at a disadvantage. So get them to read, and make the library an exciting place, a warm place where they can sit and read. In some schools, they they even have, in boarding schools, they even have little biscuits and tea or coffee, or some lemonade for kids who came after class and read in the library for half an hour, 1 hour. They'd give them chocolate cookies and a lemonade, right? Simple, but they would get them to read. Then they would have a reading club. and give them special badges. So it's up to you how much you want to. The librarian would have reading sessions. We'd encourage children to talk in the assembly about the books they'd read. Yeah, but it all starts with how much passion you have for reading and how much you read, because then, like if I were an English teacher, I used to give comprehension passages from, I would select a comprehension passage from a nice murder mystery or a nice humorous episode. And then they would say, sir, nice passage. Then I say, you want to read the book? Go and read that book there. It's in the library. And, get them to read the full book. But I would pique their curiosity with that. Yes, ma'am.
Sir, thank you so much. Just want to just tell you that the constant refrain in the chat box is that it's an unforgettable session today. And they are asking for access to the recording right away, in spite of having overshot by a bit, I feel. And
A bit, I went on
that
talking.
says
The
a lot.
teachers are very good at talking, ma'am. We can talk till the cows come home, I went on, I don't know how long.
Interested and keen on continuing with it. That's the best part. Because they're still like at
Please read the
5:45,
book, ma'am.
5:50.
Please read the book, teachers. I'm no great shakes. Basically, what I've learned, I've read from the book and other books as well. You can read Teach Like a Champion. It's a very nice book. Very good teaching pedagogy techniques. If ever you get that book, you can order it from Amazon. Teach Like a Champion, right? It's got wonderful pedagogical strategies for your classroom. I would recommend it to any teacher, right? And I came across this book in 2011, but it's still applicable. Okay. I'm sorry, the name is not coming to me, the writer. Teach Like a Champion.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
You're
first
most
of all,
welcome. Thank you, Ms. Priyanka, for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
And
And
happy to
thank you,
do other
everyone.
workshops for them whenever if
Sir,
anyone's
we are
bored.
having you very soon, sir, because the response has been overwhelming and very affirming. So thank you so
Thanks
much,
so much, teachers.
everyone,
All the best
for
in your
joining
work.
in.
I hope you always find it work and not a job.
That's wonderful. Yes, that's a wonderful way to conclude, in fact. Thank you, everyone, for joining in and sustaining your interest and repeatedly joining us for these sessions. Thank you so much, everyone. And, sir, just one big thank you to you, because you really demystified a lot of things, how to make a classroom engaging. It does not require too much of resources, but it requires a passionate teacher. It requires a teacher who's willing to be a learner, to be constantly
I agree.
upgrading oneself. And, sir, I think knowledge, like you mentioned, it's meaningful, it should be relevant, and most importantly, practical. I think that's the biggest takeaway, that knowledge should be practical, and an interested teacher can do that in a classroom. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for bringing your passion and sharing your passion with all of us. And we hope to have you soon again.
Can I just interrupt you? Like you said
Yes,
about this making meaning, right? If I say light travels in say straight lines, so I tell the teacher, so what about it? Light travels, so what about it? Like, unless you apply the knowledge, unless I say, okay, light travels in straight lines, that's why this happens, right? Or sound travels in curved lines, that's why this happens. Then you say, yeah, you got to apply the knowledge and make it meaningful and relevant. But yeah, thank you once again to you and Cambridge for the opportunity.
I think so, sir. The compliments are pouring in, sir. I've shared you a screenshot. Thank you so much for doing this for us, sir. Thank you for joining,
Bye bye.
everyone.
All the best, everybody.
Thank you
Have
for
a
a
good
wonderful
weekend.
session. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Have a good day.